The USCAA is a member-driven organization, and this town hall for ratings and selections is an opportunity for you as the members to provide feedback to us with regards to our selections processes. Just to overview how the session will work this morning is that I will read off a couple of prompts that have been provided from the national office. We did not have any member prompts for ratings and selections this year, but I'll go through a couple of discussions. At the end of each section, we'll open it up for discussion or feedback from the USCAA members. And members, in order to speak, you need to use the tool at the bottom of your Zoom screen that states to raise your hand. Once you raise your hand, you'll be called on by a member of our staff. And once you come on, we'll unmute your mic. Please restate your name and the institution that you represent. I'm going to go ahead and dive into our material here. Give me a second to share my screen. Okay, topic number one, again from the USCAA National Office, deals with championship selections. We talked a lot about the structure of national championships in our first session. Again, now this is more related to our selections process. Just a brief overview of the USCAA selections process for anybody that's unaware. Basically, each week, member institutions report their scores and statistics on the USCAA website that populates in the Presto sports system. Additionally, our staff put together what we call the USCAA Power Ranking System. If you'd like to find that system, it's located under policies at the uscaa.com. From that baseline power ranking, we then move to the coaches poll ranking, which is what actually determines at-large selections for USCAA national championships. The USCAA Coaches Poll is a regionally selected group from coaches, administrators, and sports information directors from around the association. It is selected regionally, and these committee members vote weekly on the USCAA teams for each sport. These committees meet 3 times a year, once at the beginning of the season, once mid-season, and once the week prior to the USCAA National Championships. USCAA Coaches Poll members are tasked with looking at things like win-loss percentage, the USCAA power ratings, head-to-head contest, common opponents, score differentials, in addition to several other factors. And then again, those committees rank the teams, and at the end of the year, those rankings will determine our at-large bids. The question that we pose to the membership at this time is understanding that we are significantly impacted by COVID-19. We already know that our basketball schedules are going to be severely limited this year, and there's also some uncertainty about at what point in time we may be able to start participation in 2021. We want feedback from the members of how effective they believe that this ranking system will be, feedback on rankings for non-conference members, understanding that they may be under even more significant issues in trying to find a complete schedule. But we do want to hear member feedback before we look at possible reevaluation for the 2020-2021 season for any sport. And I will open it up for any discussion, comments, questions from the membership at this time. We have raised hand.
Yeah, we have Andy McNeely submitted a link to the Massey ratings. Andy, would you like to speak on that? If you would just raise your hand and we'll give you the floor real quick. All right, Andy, you should be good. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah, this is Andy at MacU again. Last year I mentioned the Massey ratings, and you know, it's just it's kind of an RPI system. It's a computer algorithm that is able to compare, kind of common opponents, to twice removed. So, opponents of opponents and all that. But, I talked with him, a number of years ago about another situation I was in. And, but, it's just as far as getting getting scores easily to him. And I think if we've got, everything pooling into a, into a common website, and we can kick off those scores to him easily to where he can plug them into his algorithm easily, it might be something that we can look at that'll help us, as far as, kind of coming up with a computer ranking system that if it's not in and of itself, we can use it as a piece of the puzzle, kind of like the FBS did in its.
Thanks, Andy, for the suggestion. For the minutes, we'll consider for the Standing Committee for Ratings and Selections to look at Massey rankings, which I believe is just for the sport of basketball. We have a raised hand.
Nick, I believe that is you. Floor is yours.
Yeah. I think the current ranking process and procedures is good, but we'd like to get the ranking committee conference calls prior to each week's ratings. This can offset any power ranking concerns due to the fewer games. And I think also if we can get from, like, say, the Soccer Coaches Association, a list of suggested qualified coaches to sit on those calls.
Okay, Nick, you were heard calls for weekly committee meetings in addition to looking at processes for the selection of the coaches committee. Next up, Jaron.
Simone Brown, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. For the basketball, is there going to be a minimum number of games to qualify for the postseason, or maximum number?
That's a great question, Damone. Currently, based on USCAA bylaws, while we do have maximum limits, there are no minimum limits that are listed in any rules or bylaws of the USCAA. So as it stands now, there are no minimums. We certainly welcome feedback from the membership on that.
Okay, Bob Godlewski, you have the floor now.
Bob, you need to unmute your mic. Yep, there you go.
You got me?
I hear you, Bob.
Thank you. I listened to Nick, and I agree. I don't know with baseball. I don't know if it's needed immediately. I know you mentioned in the beginning of the season there would be a meeting, but I think there should be a point in time during the season, whether it's after the midpoint or a selected date, that the committee meets on a weekly basis at the end of the week or Monday morning with all scores brought in. And additionally, on the schedules that are posted by each college next to the teams they're playing, because it's a wide variety around the country. If we would know if they've played against an NAIA team or a NCAA Division II or Division III team, or it's just a USCAA team, I think that helps in trying to figure out from a schedule and strength of schedule standpoint who they're playing, and it's easier to look up that type of thing to help the committee.
Bob, thanks for your comments. For the minutes that will go to the standing committee, it seems like the recommendation is for weekly meetings of the coaches poll committee members and for them to compartmentalize each week's scores, in addition to looking to see if the USCAA can designate the level or strength of a team strictly based on the organization that they compete in through Presto Sports. So we hear you, Bob. Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to move to Robin. Robin, you have the floor.
Okay, I just was, I've served on several coaches poll committees, and I think it's hard if you're a coach and nobody else on the committee knows about your team or your location or plays down in your area, and then you're unable to speak about your team. And so why I don't think you should be able to maybe barter for your team, but you should be able to say, what you've done or who you've played, like the bare minimum, because I don't think it's accurate for the coaches poll if they don't know that area, especially down south and north. There's a discrepancy of what teams are playing and that competition level. So I think if you serve on the coaches poll committee and your team comes up as a discussion and there's no discussion on your team, I think you should be able, if there's nobody that's played a similar team or comparable, you should be able to give the bare minimum facts about your program or your team and keep it moving. Rather, I mean, not in a way that you're suggesting where your team should be ranked, but just for the facts being presented.
Robin, I'm going to keep you on the line real quick, and just to provide, transparency to anybody who has not been a part of this process before, the USCAA sends out the mid-season and end-of-season form that allows you to list top 3 wins, top 3 losses, and provide some recommendations and rationale. Do you have specific set suggestions beyond that to assist the committee in that process?
I don't know if I have specifics. I just think there's times where there's nothing said about certain teams and their coaches on that committee, and they should be able to just say what they have done or who they played or anything to that nature. I don't necessarily think that it persuades the committee in either direction. It's just helpful information. Especially when you're relying on your coaches poll to be able to, most of us are coaches, so we're trying to play, and then we're trying to scout and figure out what other teams are doing on that we're ranking. And so I just think it would be helpful for them to be able to say, this is what we did in the weeks prior, this is who we've been playing against, and keep it at that. I just think it would be helpful rather than, I mean, I know there's times where we get to see those forms, but even if those forms don't get submitted, I just think it's helpful information.
Robin, thanks for your comments. I think I will summarize that for the committee notes as the problem that we would like to at least look at is there a bias, or is there underrepresented institutions in the coaches poll, and are there solutions for having that committee look at their schedule in a better way? So thank you. Next up, Jeremy.
Next, we'll move on to Rob Bridley. Rob, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I just had a concern about the same thing, kind of with scheduling and ratings. We're in an area where we are not a member of a conference, as are a couple other Ohio schools, and we play one of the largest conferences, about half the teams in the USCAA, and if they decide in the spring not to schedule teams outside the conference, which is one of the stories that's been passed around, then we will lose a great deal of our schedule, and we won't have USCA teams on our schedule. So, not being in a conference, having conference representation, not being able to schedule other USCA schools because this is an extraordinary time may affect the rankings or position in rankings of a school like ours.
Robert, appreciate your comments. I'll summarize as recognizing that even more so than before, there may be a concern for non-conference affiliates of the USCAA to be recognized and have fair balance. So we will certainly take a look at any and all opportunities that we can to ensure representation of those institutions.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
Did you have further comments, Rob?
No, that's it.
Here we're going to move on to Jonathan Schneider. Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Matt. Just two things that I guess I'd like to point out from a ratings perspective is one thing that I've noticed over the years when it comes to the ratings is it's basically just solely who you play and what division or conference they're a part of. So sometimes you run into a problem where an a bad or a poor NCAA Division II team, obviously you're gaining more points from a schedule perspective as opposed to the best USCAA Division II team, and I think that results sometimes in a misrepresentation of how tough or how easy your schedule is. But more importantly, I think it discourages sometimes scheduling within the USCAA. I know a lot of schools, including ours, have trouble scheduling anybody, and we run into a situation where we reach out to every single USCAA institution and really struggle to find those games, and then are forced to try and fill them with junior colleges, or are forced to travel really far. So I think maybe if we did something to add in, I don't know if the Massey ratings would help with that. I would assume they would, but it would give some incentive, one, to schedule within more the USCAA, which is what we're looking to do. It would help teams like ours and some others, like Rob said, that are not in a conference. It would help us schedule, one, but two, it would probably be a little bit better from a ratings perspective. So, if you are playing a high level USCAA Division II, that's not automatically ranked as a lower skilled opponent than a poor NCAA Division II or a poor NAIA school.
Jonathan, I appreciate your comments. Sort of to provide historical perspective on all of this, at one point, 15 years ago, the USCAA was just using the power ranking system to rank and determine bids. And as the association has evolved, as conferences have evolved and automatic qualifiers have come in, and through the membership and through this process with the National Convention, that power ranking system has been tweaked. And then in 2008 was when we added the USCAA coaches poll as, again, a regionalized group of voters. And we do our best to try to make sure that that is a balanced committee. I don't want to say it's a perfect system, because I don't think any ranking system is absolutely perfect, but we do want to do everything that we can to ensure that the individuals that are tasked and given that great responsibility of ranking institutions have as much information and as best information as possible. So we appreciate your comments and certainly welcome any and all suggestions related to how to better prepare and how to best provide information to our Coaches Poll Committee. Not seeing any additional comments. Any other topics in the chat? We've got some discussion going on about Massey in the chat. I won't really dive into that too extensively, but we do have it as a recommendation for the Rankings and Selections Committee to look at the Massey Index and determine whether it can be a part of USCAA rankings in the future. Anything else? Last call on topic number 1. Okay. And then the second topic in ratings and selections deals with championship seeding. This is just something else that we want to be transparent about, is that, again, due to the effects of COVID-19, we understand that the ranking system may need to be tweaked. We also want to get feedback from the membership with regards to the championship seeding process and how and if that needs to be tweaked, or if you have any comments about the current process. Just to sort of review the current process, there is a subcommittee for seeding in each sport. It consists of several members of the USCAA national office, as well as a few individuals from around the association who have no conflicts of interest and are not in that division of sport. These individuals meet to look at number one, the final coaches poll ranking, which above all is the foundation for any championship seeding. Additionally, they look at head-to-head contests between opponents who are in the championship to determine whether any movement needs to take place. And in most cases, they try to avoid matchups of conference opponents or opponents in the same region who have played each other once or twice throughout the regular season. Again, trying to avoid that in the first round of any given bracket style or pool play style tournament. Yeah, again, COVID will sort of affect the full schedules and transparency, but want to open it up if there's any discussion on the USCAA seeding process whether you have any comments about the current process or about your concerns about the process in this COVID year. So I'll open it up for discussion. Hearing no discussion on that topic. And if we're hearing none, we will move on. At this time, and don't leave yet because we still do need to talk about USCAA legislation. That will be the last thing we hit, but I'm going to open it up. Is there any new business for USCAA ratings and selections committee? These would be any items that have not been discussed prior to today. We have some hand raised.
Okay, we have Bob. Bob, you're on the floor.
Well, thank you. We have a committee meeting at 3 o'clock, and so I was of the thought process that is to make recommendations for you, to you, after that meeting.
Yeah, each of the coaches committees are going to meet at 3. I know that one of the items that BJ had discussed on everyone's itinerary was to talk about the ratings process. So that's definitely a forum to which each sport committee would then push new business to the ratings and selections committee for future consideration.
Okay, we have Chuck Charles from Johnson Wales. Chuck, floor is yours.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring to the attention of everyone the power ranking itself. It's kind of composed of 4 parts: winning percentage, ratings, strength of schedule, and power percentage. And really, if you look at it historically, the team's ranking and power percentage very closely mimics their winning percentage. And so instead of it really being like a 4-part thing that's composed of a power ranking, it's really only 3, with winning percentage kind of having a 50% stake in it. And I think it may kind of skew sometimes, teams that play easier schedules and rack up a bunch of wins, but may not be as of a good a quality as other teams that have, played tougher opponents and had good records before. So I just wanted to put that out there as something to possibly explore, changing how the power ranking is calculated to kind of more accurately reflect, good teams playing tougher schedules versus teams that may play a easier schedule and rack up, really gaudy records.
Duly noted, Chuck. Thank you. Any additional new business? Hearing none, we will move on to USCAA legislation. I'm going to jump out and jump over to a screenshot of our legislation. First up, it's submitted by the Penn State University Athletic Conference and PSUAC Commissioner Ryan Erie. There is a proposal for revision to USCAA bylaw, Article 24.4.4, dealing with seasons of competition. The article currently reads, participation in one or more intercollegiate contests, whether in varsity, junior varsity, or freshman program. And that's, again, what dictates a season of competition. Proposal for, or proposed verbiage, if you will, would read, a season of competition shall be utilized when a student athlete participates in one or more intercollegiate contests, whether in varsity, junior varsity, or freshman program. Regular season, postseason, and exhibition contests are considered intercollegiate contests. Participation in scrimmages shall not constitute a season of competition used. I'm going to ask is Ryan present and on the floor, and if so, is he willing to speak? Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Matt. This is Ryan Erie with the PSUAC. Ultimately, this proposal came out of our own eligibility committee within our conference as we were reviewing some things this past spring. And we were looking for some information, and we kind of found this specific piece not confusing, but the scrimmages section in 19.1, I believe it is, states that scrimmages shall not constitute a season of competition used. Ultimately, this proposal is just to add language to 24.4.4 in the eligibility section specifically to note that specific USCAA rule. So it would not be changing any USCAA rule. It would ultimately just be adding language into a section where we thought it was most appropriate. We are not proposing to remove it from 19.1, but we are proposing to add it to 24, which is that section that guides eligibility. So that's the basics behind the proposal.
Thanks, Ryan. We're going to open it up to any questions or comments from the floor of the USCAA membership. Seeing no questions, last opportunity, questions on this piece of legislation? Hopefully everybody saw it in the email that I sent out. Based on this virtual atmosphere, we are going to go to a by-mail vote as per the powers included in USCAA bylaws this year. Tomorrow, during tomorrow's business meeting, we will bring these up for a brief discussion and allow for Robert's Rules of Order to provide for any revision to the verbiage, but we will not vote on them specifically tomorrow. All right, we're going to jump to the next proposal. And this comes from the Yankee Small College Conference. The two authors are Matt Richards from Southern Maine Community College and Jennifer Laney from University of Maine, Augusta. Their first proposal is an amendment to the Constitution, Article 8.1. which currently reads, the Constitution may be amended by a 2/3 majority vote of all member institutions in good standing. Proposed changes to the Constitution must be approved by the 2/3 majority vote of the Board of Directors and then distributed to member institutions at least 30 days prior to the meeting or by mail vote in which the changes are being voted upon. The proposed verbiage, the Constitution may be amended by a 2/3 majority vote of all member institutions in good standing. Proposed changes to the Constitution may be put forth to the USCAA Board of Directors by the USCAA National Office or by a member institution with 2 co-sponsoring members who are all in good standing. A proposal requires a 2/3 majority vote of the USCAA Board of Directors. Proposals with USCAA Board of Directors approval must then be submitted to the membership 30 days prior to the annual meeting or by mail vote in which the changes are being voted upon. One of the 3 members sponsoring the proposal must be in attendance at the annual meeting. I know Matt was unable to be with us today as he had one of the largest charity functions of the year. Is Jennifer there and available or willing to speak on this? Great, thanks, Jennifer.
Sure.
Jennifer, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so Matt and I put this together. I think one of the main components was just making sure that any legislation that was put forward had buy-in from another institution and to be able to help to facilitate the conversation during the convention. I think those are really the 2 main points for the proposal.
Thanks, Jennifer. I won't add too much, although I have had conversations with Matt, who sits as a past president of the committee, and one of the concerns here was that sometimes we have legislation proposals that are simply coming from one person. We'll announce it in the town hall session, and there'll be absolutely no discussion about it whatsoever, yet it will still go up to vote. So appreciate that sentiment. Are there any questions from the membership regarding this proposal? Comments, concerns? Hearing none, we'll move to the second proposal, which is a proposal to revise Constitution 8.2 amendments to the bylaws. Currently reads, the bylaws may be amended if the board of directors gives a 2/3 majority vote to present the proposed amendments to member institutions. Amendments can only be made to the bylaws if adopted by a 2/3 majority vote of member institutions present and/or voting. The proposed verbiage reads, 8.2, a proposed amendment to the bylaws may be presented by the national office or a member institution with 2 co-sponsoring members who are all in good standing. Proposed amendments can only be presented if one of the 3 sponsoring member institutions are present at the annual meeting. Proposed amendments must receive a 2/3 majority vote of member institutions present and/or voting at the annual meeting in order to adopt. I don't want to speak for you, Jennifer, but I believe that that was made under the same premise. Do you have any additional comments? I don't see your hand. Okay. So yeah, I believe that both of those articles were written using the same rationale that Jennifer just presented. I'll open it up to the floor if there's any questions or comments. Okay, we are hearing none. So that will conclude today's town hall for ratings and selections. I'll give one final reminder of the schedule for the rest of the day. We have just under an hour before our breakout or committee meetings will begin. So at 3 p.m., each of the sport committees will meet. Those members of sport committees should have a Zoom link from your committee chairperson. At 4 p.m., our standing committees for ratings and selections and national championships will meet. And again, a link has gone out. I do plan on jumping in at the beginning of each of those meetings just to review the content from today's town hall and provide just a few directives before the committee members get started for those of you out there that are a part of this. And again, we have a fun networking event tonight. We tried to rack our brains to do something social. So we're going to have virtual happy hour from 5 to 6. Again, bring your favorite beverage and snack. And we will have a night of sports trivia, and we'll break everybody out into teams, which will provide for a little bit of a social atmosphere when you go off into your own separate groups. And for those that won't be joining us for either the breakouts or virtual happy hour tomorrow, we have committee meetings in the morning at 9. We will have a scheduling event, open scheduling event for any USCAA members from 11 to 12. And if you plan on coming to that event, plan on bringing any open dates that you're looking at for scheduling for next season. And then we will have our business meeting at 12:15. Thank you again for joining us for the virtual convention, and we will see you all soon.